A lot of people misunderstand the dogma of papal infallibility and suppose it to mean that the Bishop of Rome can never be wrong about anything, when in fact the truth is closer to the opposite. What it means is that the Pope can, at very particular times, be right about something.
Papal infallibility affirms that Christian dogma is true. It is not a statement that the Pope is right on everything he says. When the Pope says that the best spaghetti in Rome is at this restaurant, it doesn't mean that he's absolutely and totally right.
Infallibility, first of all, does not mean that the Pope is impeccable, right? So if you say, for example, well, this Pope has, it was known that he had committed certain sins. Well, infallibility is not about impeccability.
There's a really nice moment in the novel Brideshead Revisited when this character named Rex, who's pretty religiously tone deaf, wants to get married in the Catholic Church. And in order to do that, he has to demonstrate the orthodoxy of his beliefs to the local priest. The priest asks him about this theoretical possibility. Suppose the Pope says it's going to rain tomorrow. Tomorrow comes and it doesn't rain. How do you explain that? Rex responds, well, it's probably raining spiritually. We're just too sinful to see it.
Infallibility does not mean that the Pope cannot be killed. Right? I mean, he can be assassinated and die. I remember when Pope John Paul II there was an attempted assassination. It was on the newspapers, attempted attack on the life of John Paul II. And my next door neighbor, who was an Anglican and heard about the attempted assassination of the Pope, her response to that was, so much for the infallibility of the Pope. Right? So again, another misunderstanding of infallibility. She was thinking that, you can shoot the Pope and he won't die, right? Well, that's not what infallibility means either.
The belief in the infallibility of the Pope stems from a more basic belief we might call the indefectibility of the Church. Meaning, Catholics believe that the Church as a whole can never actually definitively depart from Christ, because Christ will never definitively depart from his Church. Consider Matthew 28:20. Behold, I'm with you always, even to the end of the age. It follows from this, Catholics believe, that when the Pope is representing and speaking on behalf of the whole Church, he will never definitively depart from Christ either. A lot more might be said, but for a hint at this in sacred scripture, maybe consider Luke 22:32, which is when Jesus prays for Peter that his faith may not fail. And then ask yourself, if Jesus is God, is there anything he prays for that he does not also get?
Papal infallibility is concerned with faith and morals.
So if there is an issue, typically it's when there's an issue that is being disputed, a controversial issue, the Pope can make an infallible declaration. This teaching, infallible teaching, means that it preserves the Pope from teaching error.
And in that regard, what the Pope says, when he's speaking as the Pope, in line, and this is the thing, he has to be in line with all the tradition that has come before him, the teachings of the Church and Holy Scripture, then what he says is infallible.
The infallibility is also applied in relation to what is the magisterium of the Church. So the Pope, with the bishops, can come to an infallible teaching, or the Pope on his own. Now, you cannot have bishops coming to their own teaching and they're not united with the Pope. That could never be infallible. That could never be part of Catholic teaching. It's always in union, in communion with the Pope. And we also need to remember there are different types of teachings, documents that have different kinds of weight. So an infallible teaching where the Pope gives a teaching from the chair, an ex cathedra teaching, the chair being the chair of St. Peter, the last time this was used for a dogma was in 1950 with the assumption of the dogma of the Assumption of the Blessed Virgin Mary into heaven. But there are other types of documents that are promulgated by the church. The top of these documents, in terms of the weight they carry, would be an encyclical. When an encyclical is promulgated, it is the official teaching of the church. Encyclicals carry the most weight, and they are considered infallible teachings. After the encyclicals, we have apostolic exhortations. These are also weighty documents. There is the motus proprio that the Pope might give. There are letters, so we have different weights in terms of these categories. Now, perhaps the one that carries the least weight, but is often used by the media, are the off-the-cuff statements that the Pope makes. If the Pope makes an off-the-cuff statement to a journalist on an airplane traveling between cities, these are not official documents. And it's interesting how these are the ones that the media will publish and repeat. This is what the Pope said, but it's not an official document.
And so, as Christians, we can rest assured that when we abide by the teachings of the church, whether that be in our morals or in the way that we worship God, that it's true and that we can fully and wholeheartedly do this. So papal infallibility, it's not some sort of recipe for a despot or some sort of tyranny, but it's actually the affirmation of truth and that we can know it.